Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special episode of Nerd Initiative. Today, we are talking all about The Boys because we have season 5 coming up very soon, and we are calling this segment Lauren Jump In Anytime.
We're calling this segment Saturdays are for the boys, and we're going to be
Pew,
deep
pew, pew,
diving into
pew.
the comic books, which are actually a little bit crazier than the show, and we will be doing some comparisons to the show. So if you want to read the comics and you don't want spoilers, this is not the place for you. If you haven't caught up to season 4 of The Boys, and this might not be the place for you either. If you have and you want to know all the differences, all the comparisons, all the crazier stuff in the comics versus the show, then this is the place for you. We're going to be dropping these episodes every Saturday leading up to April 8th when season 5 of The Boys comes back. And as a Supernatural fan, I am so freaking pumped. That's
I
what I'm
know. It seems like the two main guys from Supernatural, obviously Eric Kripke coming from Supernatural, it's probably a pretty easy transition for you, which I think is a great place to start here. If I didn't introduce myself already, hey everybody, Thomas here, and I don't know, I kind of want to hear about your relationship to the boys, where you started, because I don't think it was the comics right away. And I'll just be honest, everybody, for me, it's not the comics. Like, I came into this so blind, saw this show pop up on Amazon Prime, and I was like, man, this looks crazy. This is awesome. I got to dive into it. And I was on a trip in Chicago going to Lollapalooza, and I almost didn't want to go to the festival because I just wanted to watch this show. And that's how I started. What about you? How did you get introduced to the boys universe?
So funny enough, it came out in 2019 and my mom got really into it. And my mom's like, "Oh, it's a new superhero show. You got to watch it." And I was kind of like, "Well, it's not DC or Marvel, but actually the first 6 issues were under DC, funny enough."
Oh,
And obviously Dynamite did the rest. But when COVID hit a year later, it was the first show I binged during COVID. So I watched it in 2020 and then I read all
nice.
the comics right before season 2 came out. So I was reading the comics when they made the announcement that Jensen was going to be playing Soldier Boy. And that was, there was a lot of supernatural crossover already, especially with Eric Kripke doing the show and Phil Segrisha as part of the show, which he worked
Hmm.
on Supernatural for I don't know, maybe the whole 15 years. I don't even know.
Wow.
But so I was already really had like just sunk my claws into it. And like that just amped the excitement for me
There
for
you
sure.
go. That's awesome. Because I know that there's kind of some differences in terms of like casting and all that stuff, but I think we're going to be talking about a lot of differences as we go through this. And why don't we just kick it up? Because we are talking about Omnibus Volume 1, which is issues 1 through 14. And as somebody who didn't read the books, who I think I know probably more than the average Joe, but I obviously did not read it. So there's some things I probably will get wrong. But yeah, let's kick it off and let's start it literally issue 1, which is the name of the game.
Yes, so Huey is with Robin at a carnival. We kick off right there in a very familiar scene. But they're
Okay.
over in Scotland, and A Train suddenly runs into her because he's chasing someone else. Huey is, of course, left holding her hands and can't let her hands go, holding just her hands. Butcher meets with Rayner, who is the CIA director, because the CIA funds the boys confidentially. Now, obviously,
Mm.
they are not big on funding them in the beginning of the boys. So they end up having sexual relations, but they really hate each other at the same time. And they're just very nasty to each other, which you see in the show, but they don't get intimate like that in the show. Um,
Right.
so it's very interesting. He says that he's putting the team back together, but he needs to replace Mallory because Mallory's grandkids had passed. So Mallory was a dude and was part of the boys. Dakota Bob
Oh.
is president already. And then Butcher goes to get Monkey, aka Kessler, that was Jeffrey Dean Morgan, to try and find a new recruit. So they're basically replacing Mallory.
Mm-hmm.
There's Mallory right there. So they're
Yep.
replacing Mallory, and that's how they kind of end up looking for Huey. So Butcher learns about Huey because he signed a release form and didn't ask for money.
There you go. So at least on that term, well, I guess in that sense, it's pretty similar to what we see in the show. The situation is different. Huey's obviously not in Scotland, and I love that the change in A Train not he's not chasing anybody in the show. I mean, he just straight up is like drugged out on Compound B, runs her over. She's a million body parts, which I think for me, as like the first time watching it, was like, holy crap, this is not your average show. It wasn't like anything Marvel was doing. It wasn't as dark as the DC universe was at this time. It wasn't even, this was still darker than that, at least gorier.
Right.
And yeah, I don't know. I love that change. How do you feel about it as somebody who read the books from like A-Train chasing somebody in the comics to not chasing anybody and just still being like, I gotta go, and then dips after killing Robin?
Well, it was one of the huge changes that they made from the comic to the show because in the comic, everybody knows about Compound V. So I enjoyed both of them, but I kind of like how they made
Oh,
it a bigger deal in the show and it was a shock.
yeah.
So like somebody, shooting up Compound V that was like Temp V wasn't as big of a deal or had the same ramifications that we're seeing going into, season 5 with Butcher dying. Um,
Yeah. That's okay. So that's already a huge change. And one thing that I don't, at least I don't remember that, because yeah, I think it's in later in the season, maybe in episode like 2 or 3, then we start finding out that what A-Train was after was the Compound V because he needed it, which we see in episode 2 for the race. And yeah, so but it's crazy. It feels like the comic gives you a lot more of the characters up front, at least for the first issue. Like we don't get Kessler, we don't get even Mallory. I think we don't get her till the end of season 1. So there's a lot that's different. How do you feel about the recruitment of Huey from the show compared to the comic?
I think they're pretty similar. I think they just made Huey in the States because one, they probably wanted Jack Quaid, but they got Simon Pegg too. So Simon Pegg is actually what they drew Huey to look like. And we got to interview Derek Robertson a few years ago, and he said that
Yeah.
they made him go get permission from Simon Pegg before they were ready to print these. And Simon Pegg loved the idea, obviously, so much he plays Huey's dad. But
Yeah.
yeah, I thought it was very on par. And that was one of the things that I think was good that they kind of kept consistent because one of the questions we asked Derek was, which character do you think is the most consistent from the comics to the show? And he said Huey. And I think
Wow.
that's pretty spot on. Now, I will say a
Nice.
disclaimer. I first read these comics 5.5 years ago. So the only things that are going to be fresh in my brain is this first 14 issues because I read them this weekend.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's still more than I did. So you're way ahead of me, and I think that's perfect. We're gonna have the follow-ups next week, I think, on Omnibus too. But yes, I think that's one of my favorite fun facts is like Simon Pegg was the model for it. But they did it the right way. They didn't do it like what Marvel did with Samuel L. Jackson, which was like they just modeled it after him. And then later
Mhm.
on was like, hey, if you don't sue us, do you want to play him in the movie kind of thing?
Right.
And yeah, so yeah, I love it. All right. Well, do we want to move on to issue number 2?
So, number 2, the name of the game, part 2. We meet Butcher's dog, Terror, and we meet Frenchie, the female, and MM. MM is already divorced, but the ex is kind of a deadbeat, and he's raising Janine all alone. But she is a teenager in this, and Butcher goes to Scotland to tell Huey
Mm.
that he wants him to join his team to fight Soups. He leaves Huey with an envelope of cash and tells him to come to New York. And so here you see MM and his, daughter and wife. So obviously that's a very different situation. I love the Flava Flav necklace.
Yeah, yeah. That was great. And it's totally, I think what I love about this universe, and I don't know if you get the same feeling from it, but it like parodies our real life so much. Like you could see on any given weekend, depending on your friend's age and whatnot, you could see their kids' birthdays very much like with Spider-Man or Captain America or Iron Man. And this show just parodies it like, I don't know, spot on to me.
Yeah, almost a little too scary these days with how many things they've been like predicting.
Yep, yep. Especially as you get onto the later seasons, it's very creepy. But shout out to Kripke because he does a great job of like capturing the ludicrousness of kind of our real world right now.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, in the show, we also see like at this point, Translucent has tried to attack Huey because Huey plants the bug in the Seven's headquarters. He follows him back to the AV shop, and then Butcher kind of helps stop Translucent. And then in episode 2, they're trying to figure out how to basically just kill Translucent. And we're introduced to Frenchie by basically suggesting they should put a bomb up his butt. Um, is the translucent
Ass
part of
lotion.
it? Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Is that something that's also in issue 2 with translucent, or is that something done just for the show?
I don't think we've seen translucent yet in the first omnibus. I don't remember where he shows up. So they actually change around some of the seven people. So the
Okay.
first seven meeting is in issue 4. And it's Homelander, Starlight, who's recently replaced Lamplighter, Maeve, Black Noir, A Train, The Deep, and Jack from Jupiter. So it's
Oh,
a little
okay.
bit different. And the only time we see Jack from Jupiter in the show is when Lamplighter is watching pornography and Jack from Jupiter is in one of those movies.
Okay, okay. I've heard that name come up a bunch, and I feel like it was referenced somewhere in Gen V, and then probably
Oh, it
yeah,
might have been
in
referenced in there too, yeah. I
yeah,
think that's one of the things I love about this universe too is like they're not following the comics to a T by any means, but there's so many just nods and little things. And even in rereading this, I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Because like you said, like Kessler
yeah,
doesn't show up till season 4.
right, yeah,
So and
yeah.
Kessler's in
Uh,
the very beginning. Yeah, he's in
Yeah.
the first
I mean,
issue.
I also like the change with Mallory too, right? So, of course, we get the iconic Anthony Starr's Homelander. I mean, I think an actor who was just born to play this role, truly. When we
So
talk about
good.
like spot on casting, right? I mean, I think of Hugh Jackman and Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man and all that kind of stuff. But man, Anthony Starr's Homelander is just like so deranged, and you get it from the jump. So I guess my question for you is, do we see Homelander in the first couple issues, or is he also kind of in issue 4?
No, he shows up. We're about to have a very familiar scene with Starlight, but it's a little
Oh,
bit
okay, okay.
different. Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
So
please let me know.
Yeah, so number 3 is called Cherry Part 1. So Homelander welcomes Annie to the Seven. Their headquarters is up in the sky rather than Vought Tower, and she tells him that she's dating Drummer Boy, which R.I.P. Boy, aka Supersonic, who she met at Capes for Christ, and she tells Homelander that him and her are waiting for marriage. She's there to replace
Mhm.
Lamplighter, and Homelander tells her that there's just one last test. He pulls his pants down and he says, as all the kids in the 90s said with the wrestling stuff, suck it. Enter A Train and
Dang.
Black Noir with their pants down as well. So they made this a little raunchier in the comics where it was all 3 of them rather than just the Deep. The Deep wasn't even there. So cut to Starlight,
Whoa.
and Starlight's in the bathroom puking, which we did see that in the show. And then she
Mhm.
sees Maeve when she comes out of the bathroom, and she's gushing over Maeve, and Maeve basically tells her to F off. Huey
Mhm.
then makes it to New York where he can see the Twin Towers. That's actually relevant because this came out in, I think, 2005, 2006, but they show the Twin
Ah.
Towers in the background. So that will be relevant in the future. Bold move by by NS and
Yeah.
Robertson.
Yeah,
So
nothing but bold, I think, in this whole comic. But yeah, that's a area maybe you normally wouldn't touch, but
no,
they
and
kind of
they did
touched
not touch
everything.
that with a 10-foot pole in the show, not at all. Um,
Yeah,
so the
perfect.
boys all meet in their new crappy office, and Butcher explains their first task is to go after Teenage Kicks, which is a superhero group full of like younger kids. Not kids, they're
Okay.
adults. It's where A Train actually started. Pop Claw's there, A Train's girlfriend in the show, and Gunpowder, who is Soldier Boy's sidekick, and Dognot, who we saw in Gen V.
Hmm.
And that's how that episode wraps up. They got their first mission.
Interesting. Okay, so they decide to forego that, put everything on the deep, which, yeah, that guy is just, he's so good in it. Like, I'm blanking on his name right now. Is he like he was like a Dawson's Creek guy or something like that?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
Gossip Girl.
Gossip Girl, Gossip Girl. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Possibly. I don't know. I haven't watched that stuff, but he's so good in it. He's a
yeah.
lot more serious. Yeah, we got Lamplighter up
That's
right
Lampa,
there.
yeah.
And but man, the deep, such a creep. Didn't mean to make it rhyme, but it just naturally did.
It works.
um, it works. So I think that's such an interesting twist because rather than just making Homelander an outright disgusting person, you're kind of a little bit unsure about him in the show. Like you notice something's off, but it gets progressively worse and worse. And you're basically told everything you need to know about him by the end of the episode because he basically lasers down the plane that has that senator on it or something who is trying
Oh,
to
yeah.
blackmail Vought. And yeah,
And the
I
kids on
like
the plane too, yeah.
totally, and it
Yeah.
just completely like ruins everything. But you kind of see him like slowly start to become more and more deranged. You also, when you first meet him, he's with Maeve stopping some criminals, and some kids are talking about like the new movie coming out. And
Mhm.
so he very much seems like a hero. And it is, I think, again, more and more exposed. I don't know. I guess how do you feel about the reveal of Homelander? in the show compared to the comic story?
I think I like the show better. It was like same with Invincible. I felt like I liked the comic Invincible better with Omni-Man because it was a slower burn in the beginning. And in the
Hmm.
show, it was a slower burn with Homelander. But I think the difference is they don't focus on the seven in the comics so much. They're not like their main goal, whereas in the show they are. So I felt like they
Mm.
needed to spread that out with Homelander.
Yeah.
So, but I enjoyed both, but I do think the show was done more creepy.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, I can see that. I love it. I mean, I think it just kind of built to the Homelander mystique, if you will. I mean, he's just such a crazy, creepy character. But one thing we do kind of see that's similar to the comic is that Annie is having a hard time joining the seven. Like she thinks it's going to be this amazing thing. Her mom, the whole world thinks it's just like the best thing in the world to be a part of the
Right.
seven. And we get a big dose of reality at the same time that Annie's getting a big dose of reality.
Oh, that's a
And
terrible way to put it.
yeah, it really is. It's sad, but yeah, I
Oh,
don't
it's
know. I don't know
terrible.
how else
Yeah.
to, I don't know how else to describe it. But yes, we see it through kind of Annie's eyes. Even in episode 2, she tries to tell her mom like, "Hey, this terrible thing happened with the Deep," and her mom is just bragging about her being in the Seven, just completely disillusioned with like what superhero life is like. She finally gets the opportunity also to go on a patrol, and they're like, well, because of marketing, we want you to go with the Deep. And she's like, obviously, with what happened, doesn't want to go with him. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how Annie is portrayed in the comics, so I guess I want to know that. But also, like, I don't know. I just found myself like just being so disgusted for Annie and feeling so bad for her right off the bat, and just like really rooting for her, but just feeling so bad. And I think that's the same thing when you juxtapose it on the other side with the boys and Huey.
hmm So in the first omnibus, she does seem more like a victim kind of thing and just trying to do what's right. And in the second one, we'll start to get more of the Annie we've kind of gotten to know in the show.
Oh,
But
okay.
she is going through it for a while, I would say in the comic. So we don't
Brutal.
dive too much. Yeah, yeah. Well, I read the first issue for the second omnibus, and I was like, oh yeah, because it starts out with her. So we'll get into that one next week. But yeah, I'm
Okay.
ready.
Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Uh, right on. Yeah. And we
Right.
don't even see Lamplighter. You pulled up a picture of him, played by Iceman from the X-Men
I know,
series.
I love that.
Yeah. Did he have any roles in Supernatural or anything?
No, but he was in Smallville. So was his twin
Smallville.
brother,
That's right.
though, and they
That's
pretend like
right.
they're completely different people, which was really confusing the first time I watched it. I was like, "Why that? No, he's a bad guy. Why is she hugging him? Why is he Jimmy Olsen?" And then I learned
Oh.
it was the twins.
That's so weird. That is an odd choice for casting, considering people are gonna know they're twins or see them.
They're
Um,
identical twins. I mean, come on, guys.
yeah. I know. I'm forgetting which one was. It's like Sean Astin, I think. I don't know.
Ashmore, Ashland.
Ashmore. Yeah. But we don't even get him, I think, in season 1. We get like a cloaked figure for Lamplighter, and we know that he's retiring. So that's what in this show like leaves the space open for Annie to join the team. And
Right.
it's like, yeah, okay.
And we don't find out what happens to Lamplighter, like why he left the team until later. So we won't even talk about that tonight.
Yep.
But
Yep.
right.
Definitely. All
So
right. On
number four.
to what is it? Yeah, part 2.
Yes.
Issue number 4.
Sherry part two. So the boys are spying on the teenage kicks and they are doing horrible things with each other and with some female sex workers. And they have hookers are, there's no way to PG do that. We should have warned at the beginning. It's the boys.
Yeah.
It's going to be explicit. There's no way I can candy coat this stuff.
Right. This is for adults. Sorry. Not for kids.
I know. It's like every time I say something, I'm like, oh. All right. So the hookers are actually snorting temp compound V to keep up with the soups.
Oh,
Starlight is attending her first meeting of the seven. And like we said before, it's Homelander, Starlight, Maeve, Black Noir, A Train the Deep, and Jack from Jupiter. Butcher gets some temp B from Rayner and he stabs Huey with it without his consent. He says it will make him stronger for a bit to protect himself. Only side effect is it turns your shit blue. Huey is none too pleased about this because he did not ask for his consent, and Huey considers going back to Scotland. And that is
yeah.
how we end issue 4. So, yeah. Compound V, Temp V is no big deal in the comics.
That's so interesting because it becomes such a big deal later on. I don't remember if it's like season 2 or 3 when we first meet Soldier Boy, and they're all
3.
taking, yeah, 3. And remember, it's like such a big deal that they all take temporary compound V, and it's like, are you gonna do that? You know, and they all get their powers, which I love that season. I thought that season was so cool. But interesting that they made it more of like a dirtier thing, maybe rightfully so. I don't know. What do you think about the change there?
Well, I think both of them make sense. Like, but also, I mean, if you have the side effects like they're having in the show, yeah, you're killing yourself. And what for? Are you really doing it? Like, I don't feel like Butcher's doing it for the good of humanity. I feel like he's doing it to pump his own ego so he can finally go toe to toe with Homelander. Uh,
Right.
but in the comics, it's just a matter of like, no, we need this. How else are we going to defeat these people? How else are we going to go toe to toe with them? And you got the CIA director, getting it for them. Whereas in the show, you have Maeve like sneaking it out
Right.
to give to Butcher, or Annie sneaking it out, and them coming up with all these ways to get it out of the lab.
Yeah, yeah. Huh. I know. I that is like a side, even though now I know the difference, that is like a thing for me as somebody who didn't read the comics that would want to go back and read how that feels. Because I think there's like a certain part to me that I like that it is getting snuck out and that they feel guilty about it. And they're like, if we take this, we're no better than them. There's like almost that moral dilemma, but in the comics,
Yeah.
yeah, it makes sense why they would have to do it too, because they want to survive. For the longest time in the show, I'm like, there's just no way. There's no way they're going to be able to beat, especially Homelander, without some type of advantage. And we also see how bad it is for you to take the temporary compound V because we see it with A Train in this show. Like he's already jonesing, and we especially see it with what happens with him and Popclaw.
Yeah. Oh gosh, her poor landlord.
Yeah, definitely. Oh yeah, that part's pretty crazy. But I like it. I think for me that's almost like a point for the comics because I feel like that is, even though it may not change the overall story, that motivation for me I feel like changes a lot with the characters.
Yeah, I think it adds depth. And while I do think the comics have depth to them and they have heart to them, it's not anywhere near on the same page as the show. I feel like one of the big differences between the comic and the show is a lot of people will say Gen V and the boys will have a scene that's just utterly disgusting or overly violent and they don't understand why, but I feel like they always make it make sense. Like the sauna scene, like that's God from Supernatural. I'm never going to recover from that scene. But
Okay, yeah, yeah.
they made it make sense with the pink eye and it was harder for him to see, and then Frenchie got like a leg up on Splinter. And
Right.
they did a similar thing in Gen V with the guy, oh god, what did they call him? Black Hole, I think is what he was called.
Oh,
He had
the
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 like
with the
TARDIS with an
butthole
ass.
thing.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
But they
Yes.
made it make sense. Whereas I feel like in the comic, there's some very violent scenes. There's some like horrible sex scenes, and they're not always necessary to get the point across, other than just showing the depravity of what some of these soups have become.
Got it. Okay. Because it makes me wonder for you on this. Because in episode 3, we see that, Translucent is still caught and he's finally going to be let out. They determine or are able to put the bomb up his butthole. He's able to kind of escape and he walks past Huey. And Huey decides at this moment that he's going to explode him. Super gory, blood everywhere. This is the moment that Huey takes agency, but he's officially in the boys in a sense because he's a murderer now. Is this similar in the comics, or is there a different point where Huey is like he's hit the point of no return?
Where there is a similar scene in that we're coming up on,
Okay.
and actually, we're coming up on it real soon, and it kind of combines two scenes we've seen in the show.
Okay. Perfect.
So,
Yeah.
so we can go. Issue 5 is Cherry Part 3. Annie and Huey meet on a park bench and they have a moment. They're just random strangers who met. As Huey smiles and walks away, Annie flies away, but he does not see her do this. After
Mm.
spying on the teenage kicks, they send them pictures and they listen in on them arguing as they realize these pictures are a threat. The boys listen in laughing as Huey does show up. He decided to come back. Of course, meeting Annie had something to do with that.
Hmm.
So the teenage kicks decide to that Shout Out, that's the name of one of their characters, is going to get kicked out. He's going to take the hit because the boys are basically saying, hey, we're going to make all this public, all these pictures we got, if you don't kick somebody out. So they kick
Okay.
this poor kid out because he was gay. Homelander immediately knows it was Butcher that caused all this. The teenage Kicks get a letter telling them that it was Butcher and the boys, so they show up to threaten the boys, and Butcher laughs.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. A very big turn. We also see in the comics like Homelander is maybe a little smarter. Like I think in season one,
Yeah, he's
he's
clever.
conniving. He is clever, but he gets a lot more clever, in my opinion, later on in the seasons, especially as we see towards the end once he kills Stillwell. But like before Stillwell, like that was the point where we're like, I guess you realize he's more clever than he is. At first, you just think he's evil, at least in my perspective, and then but it seems like in the comics, like he's kind of tapped into all these different heroes, even beyond the seven. That's I don't know. Yeah, I guess it makes him a little bit more overarching and threatening in a sense. I don't know. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I feel like he's more straight up evil and a leader in the comics, whereas in the show, I feel like throughout season one is a pivotal change for him because he's realizing these people he thought loved him were afraid of him. Like I
Mm,
think when Stillwell told him that she was scared of him, it broke his heart. Because he even said at one point, I prefer to be loved, but if I can't be loved, then I'll be feared.
yeah, which is
So
such a
I
good line.
I know it really is, and
It's
I
so
mean
perfect.
brutally honest too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh man. Okay. Well, yeah, that's crazy. At this moment, so they're now threatening the boys. What moment there do they come and attack the boys in the comic, or does this go on to, I
Yes,
guess, issue
they.
7?
Yeah, well, in issue 6, we pick right back up, and we're about to get
Issue
to that
6.
scene where I was talking about with Huey. So, number 6 is Cherry, the conclusion. So, the
Hmm.
teenage Kicks basically get their ass handed to them by the boys because they all have temp V. And Huey goes to defend himself against a character called Blarney Cock. He puts his fist right through him, accidentally killing him and ending the fight. So, this is, I think, a nod to him killing Translucent because it's his first kill.
Hmm.
And the first time he takes Compound V when they find Soldier Boy, I think it's in that one. One of the times when he's taking in the Temp V, he puts his arm straight through someone.
Yes. Yep. Yep. I remember
Um,
that part. Okay, so that's the nod to the comics. We would just get it in a later season.
yeah. Yeah, that's what's I think so cool too is like there's stuff in season 4 that's from, the beginning of the comic and vice versa and it's all over the place. So here's
Got it.
another nod to season 3. Do you remember the hamster Jamie that has superpowers in Russia?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, in the comic, see, this is one of these things that is not really necessary. In the
Okay.
comic, after Blarney Cock is killed, the hamster crawls out of his ass, and
Okay.
Huey adopts it and names it Jamie. Um,
Okay.
as Huey struggles with what he did, Butcher tells him that a soup raped his wife. So that is similar to to the show. He
Mm-hmm.
said one day, though, he woke up and she was dead. Her guts were everywhere, and there was a soup baby with laser eyes that he had to beat to death with a lampstand. And Butcher has scarring
Ugh.
on his arm from the laser vision of the baby. But
Which I guess would be a nod to the show too, with the laser
yeah,
eye. I remember that trailer, like when season 1 first dropped, you saw him with the laser-eyed baby, and he's like shooting him around the room, and he's like, that's where you get the first like diabolical,
yeah.
and yeah, and immediately, yeah, it transports me back to like early 2019, seeing that trailer and being like, this show is gonna be insane.
Yeah, it is insane. And it just gets more and more insane.
Yeah.
So Butcher then, he's trying to calm Huey down. He doesn't want Huey to feel bad for what he did. He didn't mean to do it. Butcher then explains that soups get away with 60% of people dying during a save as opposed to normal rescuers, which 20% is like acceptable.
Hmm.
Because people are scared of the soup, so they let them do more of what they want. Also, while President Dakota Bob may hate soups, Vic the Veep does not. He loves them. So keep in mind, though,
Hmm.
those are the people that are running for president in season 4. Bob Singer is Dakota Bob, which,
Hmm.
fun fact for Supernatural people, obviously, the actor. Are you familiar with Supernatural at all?
Nope. I
Okay.
tried to get into it. I have not yet.
Okay. So Jim Beaver plays Robert Singer in The Boys, and
Okay.
that's Dakota Bob. In Supernatural, Jim Beaver plays Robert Singer, and he's from Dakota, South Dakota.
Wow. My
Yeah.
brain's all tangled up, but it seems like, all right, they're like using
It's,
different
it
places and stuff for names.
it worked out beautifully. So Jim Beaver is in Supernatural throughout the whole thing. He's like
And
their
that's his like
surrogate
real
dad.
name as the actor, Jim Beaver.
Jim Beaver's his real name, yes. So
Okay,
there's
okay.
one of the guys who like runs Supernatural is actually named Bob Singer, and they
Yeah.
named him Bobby Singer after him in the show. And then when he got cast to The Boys, it
Yeah.
just worked out that that was Dakota Bob, and they made him Robert Singer.
Oh,
So
okay. And
yeah,
Dakota Bob is a nickname. Dang,
yes,
that's crazy. So he's played Bob Singer in like two roles in
yes,
like the
both
show.
run by Eric Kripke. Yes.
That's so great. That's amazing.
But Vic the Veep is obviously a very different person as we get Victoria Newman in the show and not a guy that does not
Mm,
look mentally all there like we do in the comics.
got it. Got it. So we're seeing already they kind of gender swap some things and the characters are pretty much intact. It's just
Mhm.
that there's, I don't know. I guess as somebody who hasn't read the comics, I still think it works. I love Victoria Newman. I think she's a fantastic character, especially what they do with her later on. I think my favorite with her is how they tie her in with Marie in Gen
Yeah.
V. That was really well done. But okay, how does she differ in the comics, or have we met her yet in the comics? And how does she differ?
Marie
No,
or
Victoria Newman.
Victoria Newman is Vic the Veep. So she's the
Victor.
dude
Oh, that's right.
in the
Yeah, yeah,
comic.
yeah. Got it.
We'll get more into him later on, but he is the vice president already. Obviously, she never makes it to vice president because of what Butcher did to her.
Hmm.
Which I thought that was cool that you have them running for president and vice president, whereas they already are at the beginning of the comic. But
Mm,
she's very intelligent in the show, and he is not very intelligent in the comic.
got it. Got it.
So she is
Okay.
actually a big, I would say, a big change.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, she was a great change. I really liked her character in the show. I thought she had cool powers. And there's also, you're like, is she going to be as evil as Homelander? But I don't know. I guess knowing how she ends, or I guess how she dies, like you root for her more. But then obviously Butcher, kind of screws that up.
I feel like she did everything she could to protect herself and her daughter. I never really
Right.
faulted her for some of the things she did.
Right.
I think she just erred on the evil side out of just, yeah, protecting her and her daughter. I
Yeah.
do.
True. Yeah, I would agree with you on that. Absolutely.
All right.
So let's see. So issue 7, and I love it because I'm seeing Tech Knight, which, yeah, I think that was another character that they threw into Gen V, but not in the early season of The Boys.
Right. He shows up in Gen V and then he dies in season 4 of The Boys.
Yeah, that's right. At his like sex dungeon
Yes.
super oligarch party where they're all like creeps and just terrible people.
Yes. So he's actually a parody of Batman in the comics, hence Tech Knight.
Hmm.
So we start this with Tech Knight tells his therapist that he can't stop fucking things. He's a founding member of Payback, which is the group Soldier Boys in the comics, and he's
Hmm.
got a sidekick named Ladio. The therapist walks out, and while he's out, Tech Knight does some stuff to the guy's coffee. So the therapist tells him to leave and don't come back.
Okay.
Frenchie and the female are all in a fight. They're doing their fighting stuff. Doesn't even know their real names, which is very interesting. Like, so Frenchie and Kamiko, who we know as Kamiko, she's
Yeah.
only called like the female. And so they don't really have much
Interesting.
personality. They just like fight and they'll play like games. And MM's like, yeah, I don't even know what their real names are. So again, we flesh them out more personality wise and whatnot in the show, which I love because yeah, she's really just an attack dog in this completely.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah,
Uh,
I love how they tie her into the show because we see that it's basically a ploy by Vought to use her as a weapon to justify Soup's getting into the military to attack and like fight Soup terrorists. And like turns out like there ends up being like a real Soup terrorist and then they send Homelander or whatever. But like man, Kimiko and Frenchie are like some of my favorite characters in this show, and I really like what they did in the last season with them. But like her not being able to speak and us kind of getting just flashbacks to what her life was like, that's pretty crazy. You don't know a lot about them, at least in the first volume of the comic.
if I remember correctly, I don't think they dive deep into them. But again, it's been 5.5 years. I binged these comics pretty fast, so we will find out as we go. So you guys
Yeah.
will find out with us if you haven't read them.
Yeah, or yeah, drop it in the comments or yeah, on wherever social media if you kind of remember this stuff. But Man, that's so crazy. Yeah, because I love, again, yeah, I just love Kimiko, and we see later on that Black Noir goes after them, and she's kind of the one that ends up like saving them, and she
Yeah.
almost dies in that moment. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. Hmm.
All right. So yeah, in this issue, Butcher. That's Butcher and Huey's couple name, Butchie.
Right, right, I like it.
Butcher
Yeah.
takes Huey to Vinny's Comics. So Butcher heads to the back of the comic shop to meet the legend. So the comics are all a facade to show the public what the Soups did. So the legend knows
Mm,
the truth about the Soups, and he is asking for a favor from Butcher. He claims that someone threw his sister's grandson off of a roof 6 months ago, and the cops aren't doing anything. The first Ladio is the one who he says did it, and that is Tech Knight's original sidekick. Butcher takes
yeah.
the comic and the file, and off they go. So in the show, we see Vought News is the way they spin things, and in the comic books are the way they spin things. And of course, this is the legend Paul Reiser
Interesting.
in the show. I love Paul Reiser, and I love him in the
Yeah.
show. Very
Yeah.
different character in the comics.
Oh, really? Yeah, fantastic actor. Been around in so many amazing things, but he was like a surprise for me, like Simon Pegg was a surprise. Not going into be like, what the heck? He's just playing Huey's dad, not knowing that he was the inspiration for the actual Huey in the comics. But yeah, this is great. And also, I don't think we get him in season one either. I think he's like a
No,
season three
3.
thing.
Yeah, when
Yeah,
they're looking
yeah,
for Soldier Boy. So
that's
Soldier Boy's
right.
staying with him. He's got that gorgeous robe on with the with the older ladies.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Man, that's crazy. All right, so yeah, there's a tie in there with Tech Knight and him, and he's kind of brought to the story a lot sooner. It looks like, yeah, in issue 8.
Yeah. So issue 8, not much happens. That's Get Some Part 2. Tech Knight's butler quits after being assaulted by him. Huey and Butcher investigate the death of the legend's great nephew, and they end up at Tech Knight's place because of it.
Mm.
And similar to the show, if I don't know if you remember, but the butler quit because he was sick of cleaning cum out of everything. Actually, he killed the guy. He quit in this. In the show, he killed him.
Right, yeah.
And was the
Yeah, I
safe
think
word
that's
was
it.
Zendaya. Oh my God, so terrible.
Yeah, wait, what was it to say? What did he say again?
The safe word was Zendaya because it was
Yeah.
Huey was like a Spider-Man parody,
Oh, yeah.
and he wanted
That's
to do
right, that's right.
something to where his web
The
shooters
whole
come out.
was,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh god, yeah, the whole thing. What a like. It's pretty close from what it sounds like in the comics, but the specificity of like the holes of it all was just like they really played into it in the show, and yeah, it's pretty disturbing.
Well, what's interesting too is in the comics, Tech Knight is not a soup, just like Batman. He just has
Right,
money and builds toys. He has a Tech Knight cave and all of that. But in Gen V, we see that he is a soup and he has like heightened senses because he
right.
walks into the room with that one woman and he's like, I can tell you're ovulating. It's like, well, that's a weird superpower. But then the wanting to have sex with everything, not everybody, everything in the comic and the show, it's a brain tumor. So that was interesting.
Right. That's right. Yeah. Doesn't he eventually like he kind of in the comics like and stop me if I'm gonna like spoil something, even though we're kind of spoiling everything. Doesn't he end up like actually stopping a meteorite and like actually saving people at the end?
Yeah, we're gonna get
Yeah.
yeah, it's coming up, yeah.
Okay. Right on.
Yeah, so he got a good going out in the comic. In the show, he got a oof, nasty going out, killed by Alfred. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, so number 9 gets some part 3. At the Tech Knight cave, he kicks them out and is shocked that they know his true identity. At first, he lies about his former sidekick swinging. Tech Knight is human, I mentioned, no compound V. After the female takes him out of his suit, he's now powerless. And he explains that he had a threesome years ago with his first Ladio, aka swinging, and Talon, who is basically Catwoman. So they're
Mm.
nowhere closer to solving this murder of the legend's great nephew. So this was a very interesting kind of story that goes on for quite a few issues about like finding out who killed this kid and who it was like an 18-year-old kid like and who threw him off a building. I don't
Hmm.
really know what exactly they were getting at the overall arching story. I think maybe it was just they didn't know how long the comic was going to go on and how big it was going to be and they were just having a story. Maybe I
Yeah.
just don't remember and it will flesh out more
It to
in the
me,
future, but
yeah, it kind of seems like they were trying to nod the Watchmen. Like the Watchmen starts with the comedian getting tossed out of the window and then it kind of spins all the different
oh.
characters. I don't know, maybe that's what they
I
were
mean,
hinting
this
at.
is all Batman, so that would make sense. And this was right after they left DC, and they're now at Dynamite, I
Oh,
believe. I think it was
there you
just the
go.
first 6 were DC.
Yeah, maybe that was it. Like they were just trying to nod to one of the greatest comics ever written in, and like they're like, maybe we could do it our own way. So I don't know if that's what it was, but it does kind of seem, at least in the comics, like a pretty big departure from the overall narrative here, right? Which is
Yeah.
like, if superheroes were real, would they actually be the good heroes that we read about? Like, would they, does absolute power corrupt? Absolutely. And whenever I hear the boys, that's immediately what I think about. It's
I
like,
think that Boys is the most accurate. I do. Yeah, I just opened the comic. It is issues 1 to 6 are DC and 7 to 14 are Dynamite.
ah,
So
there
I
you
wonder
go.
if that's why they did late. It was like, oh, you guys didn't want to keep us over there. I don't know what went on behind the scenes, but that would be interesting.
That would be, yeah. I mean, it's a pretty legendary. I feel, I mean, of course, The Watchmen is legendary, but that whole idea of like starting out with, one of the heroes was killed. We're trying to figure out why the hero was killed. And along the way, you find out really what these heroes are like as people, and also like how they are all messed up in their own ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't
All
know.
right, so let's get more into who killed this poor kid. So, number 10,
Okay.
get some conclusion. So, they find Swinging. He confesses to killing the great nephew, but claims it was an accident. Turns out this guy was actually a homophobe, but Vought had him advertised as a friend of that community to get more fans. Butcher tells Swinging that he's going to feed him information moving forward as he unscrews a screw from his jetpack. We learn Legend doesn't actually have a sister, so no clue why he cared about this 18-year-old kid that was thrown off the building. He got thrown off. He got thrown off or fell off because he actually told Swinging that he had feelings for him, and then he reacted very not cool, very uncomfortable, and that's how
Mm.
the poor kid ended up going off the building. So the news reveals Swinging died on a mission because of his jetpack. Tech Knight then saves the world as he fucks a meteor heading for Earth and he dies a hero. That's how he goes out.
Yeah. Yeah. The
And we learn he had a brain tumor.
Right. What a massive change in Tech Knight. It's weird also to, I think in some ways, like sideline Tech Knight, you know what I mean? Like they now push him like way far out. I feel like the story of coming out and like how it's spun though is done through Maeve. And
Yeah.
I can't remember if it's season one now or if it's like season two, but we find out, or I guess like we know that Maeve is, I think she's bi, right?
Yeah, she's bi.
But then they tried to, at least Vought tries to spin it as like she's gay, she's queer, and we're like,
Yeah.
she's our queer
Brave
icon.
Maeve.
Yeah, yeah, and they blow it up at the theme park, and it's totally, not what she wanted. It wasn't, it was something very private to her, and like, of course, Vought
They
uses it as
marketed
a
it.
marketing opportunity, totally. So
Yeah.
I feel like maybe that's how this story from the comics was kind of weaved into the show. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that one?
That could have been. It's still kind of early on because some of the stuff that they're doing, I'm like, well, this does seem a little homophobic, like just in the writing. But it's also like 2005. Not that that was okay, but I feel like we've learned things since then of like, oh, that's not cool. But
Right.
what I love about what they do portray in this is so one of the parts when they're investigating it, Butcher and Huey go into a gay bar, and Huey is a little uncomfortable. Butcher's not
Mm,
uncomfortable at all. He's totally fine, totally cool, and he even like makes fun of Huey for seeming uncomfortable. He's like, "What is wrong with you? Like, who cares?" And then
right.
Huey's kind of like, "Oh, that's true. Why do I care?" And then Huey's telling MM about it, and MM's like, "Well, yeah, Butcher only doesn't like people who are like bad people. It's as simple as
Mm,
that." So I do like that kind of, made Huey kind of perceive it a little differently. Like, okay, Butcher's not
interesting.
actually because Butcher comes across as a bad guy, even in this show.
He
But he's,
does. Yeah,
he's not a bad guy. He just does bad things and makes terrible decisions, but he's
for
kind of like an
sure.
anti-hero.
He totally, like, he's always come across as like the Punisher to me, and Punisher is doing the wrong things for the right reasons.
Yes,
And
yeah.
yeah, and I like it. I think that's the thing I'm noticing too as we're talking about it. It's like there's a little bit different onus on who they put the put things on, I guess, compared to the comics. Like for a lot of what Huey does, he ultimately makes the decision in the show. He's not innocent by any means, but it is a lot of pressure from Butcher. And so, but it seems like in the comics, it's a lot of Huey coming to realize, like, wait, my reality or the way I look at things is wrong. I got to start changing things. And because, and Butcher brings it out of him.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I don't know. It shouldn't be controversial, but I think it probably was a little bit at the time. Maybe the comics came out, but yeah, I love that they're even bringing this up, the fact of like acceptance and how does that acceptance work in a world where like heroes clearly exist and they're like the worst people out there. So do you, yeah, the stupidity of not accepting people being gay or queer, is that really important when soups have uh, all the power in the world? They can do whatever they want. They should be terrible people and they have
Yeah.
no recourse. Or looking at you reality right now. But I'm just saying, like it is interesting how the comic goes about it.
Well, and they do a great job of calling out the hypocrisy too that, we see in real life as well. Like all of the soups, and like when we get to Hero Gasm, you see a lot of that. Like all of the soups are definitely bisexual, but of course they're not publicly bisexual, and they will make fun
Right.
of people who are queer, even though
Mhm.
they themselves are, but they don't view it like that because they're only doing it at Hero Gasm or they're only doing it to get off. It's like, okay.
Right, right. Which I think is a perfect kind of segue into, I think it's called episode 5, Good for the Soul. We have the Believe Expo, which is like the super Christian
Yes.
expo,
With
and
Ezekiel?
obviously, yeah, with Ezekiel, and he's got Mr. Fantastic powers, he stretches, but he's like terrible. He's obviously being super hypocritical. He is into men as well. There's like the pictures that come out, and then he tries to like, I think it's like either murder Annie or murder Huey, and yeah, it just being a complete hypocrite, but
Yeah, I forgot
showing
about that.
how, yeah, like Vought is, they'll say and do anything to kind of feed the public whatever they can to keep selling them merchandise, to keep selling
Mm,
them tickets to the park and whatever. So yeah,
yeah.
it's crazy.
All right, so we're about to meet another character that is quite hilarious. So the boys are actually off to Russia now in issue 11, Glorious 5-Year Plan, Part 1. So Monkey, that's Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who's Kessler, picks
Mm.
them up and assures Butcher that the CIA had nothing to do with tipping off the teenage kicks. We meet Nina. I don't know if you remember Nina. Here's
She's the
Nina.
one that kind of recruited Frenchie. Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
So this is Nina, but in the comic, she's like teeny tiny and she's a huge fan of vibrators. So she's on a plane
Okay.
and
I
she's
don't
using
Yeah, I don't
it's
remember
relevant,
that
I
from the show.
promise.
Okay, yeah.
So the boys meet up with Voss, aka Love Sausage. Oh, I probably shouldn't have grabbed a picture of him. So he was a Russian superhero in the group Glorious 5-Year Plan. The reason they are there is a couple soups recently had their heads explode. Turns out there was an unstable boosted kind of compound V that could do this, but
Mm.
they never figured out how it actually worked and they're experimenting on it. So Voss is going to sneak them into the morgue to investigate this body whose head exploded and hopefully be able to replicate the serum or do something to find out how they can kill some soups. So they take a sample of the dead body with the exploding head. Meanwhile, Nina meets up with some dude from America, and you'll never guess who the dude from America is. You might actually guess it. It's Stillwell, but it is not Madeline Stillwell. It is a dude. I thought I had
Okay.
Stillwell.
Is it the
Oh,
because Sitwell in the comics is a dude, right? So
here it is. Yeah, so
yeah.
in the comics, Stillwell's a guy. In the show, obviously, it's Elizabeth Shue who kills it.
Yeah, she's so
So
good.
she's the one meeting with Nina, or he's the one meeting with Nina, and then the Russian mob sends the boys and Voss a pizza with someone's face on it, and that's how that issue ends.
Oh, whose face is it?
I, I think I don't even remember. I don't think it's relevant.
Yeah, that don't matter. Okay.
It's
Got
just the person.
it.
But
Got it.
so this is obviously very similar to the Soldier Boy storyline. They're going to Russia to try to
Yeah,
figure out and find this thing to kill soups.
right.
Only they
Yeah.
find Soldier Boy, and this one they find an exploding head recipe.
Interesting. Which I then feel like they wrap up into Newman's story.
Yeah.
Victoria Newman's story, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, because I loved that season. I think it was like season 2 ending where everybody in the press room's head is just like popping.
Yes. Yeah, and Rayner was the first one to go.
Right. Like one thing I want to give this show credit for, which I wonder if you feel the same. It's like it's the thing I get from Game of Thrones, where, I never really know who's safe and who's not safe. And I think that it's kind of a testament to the show. Not to say that the writing is exactly the same, because it's definitely not. But it's like, yeah, there's been so many characters, whether it's Stillwell or Victoria Newman or whatever, and you're like, they're great. They're like finally going to do the right thing. And then they just get murdered out of nowhere, or seemingly out of
Yeah.
nowhere for me. Do you get that same feeling in the comic?
Yeah, I don't think anybody's safe in the comic either. But I don't think we've gotten it early on yet. I don't feel like I was shocked by any deaths in the first omnibus, but I do think as it progresses, there are.
Okay.
But I will say Madeline, I think, was a perfect example of how shocking a death can be in the boys, because I thought that she was safe.
Right. Yeah. I agree. As I was kind of like preparing for this, I was going through a bunch of episodes too. There's like the subtle hints too about how she controls Homelander. And I will say, as somebody who has a 3-month-old at home right now, all the baby bottles and the pumping and all that stuff
Oh, I'd
was,
be livid.
yeah, it was disturbing. It's even more disturbing now, but it's really subtly done. And I love that kind of uh yeah, it's just like, I don't know if restraint's the word, but there's just like little plants of, how she's able to get a Homelander wrapped around her finger and whatnot. But yeah,
Mhm.
I thought she was completely safe in season one. And so by the time we get to the end of the season, which again, don't want to spoil anything if you're going to take it away on the comic, but man, that surprised me.
I won't spoil the end of the comic until we get to the end of the comic, because it's such
Perfect.
a freaking what the hell just happened end of a comic.
Okay, yeah. I know some stuff about like the White House and everything, and I think that's where this season's going, but
Mm,
we'll continue with where we're at currently in the
yeah.
issues. I'm
But
loving
I
this.
will say, I think probably Madeline and Stormfront are my two favorite gender swaps, because of what they were able to do with their sexuality to get control
Mm,
over Homelander. So I thought that that
right.
was a very interesting take, especially with Madeline doing the like mommy thing with Homelander, is something that Stillwell in the comics could have never done. Plus, he doesn't really have much of a personality. He's very just like stoic.
Right. Yeah. And I think it did a lot to give him personality in this season, at least in season one, which is like, this guy is so messed up. And for a long time, you don't realize that heroes aren't born, that they're being created. That's another thing where I'm getting it from the comic, that you kind of know that Compound V is the reason why these soups have powers.
Right? They're not
Eh,
God's chosen ones.
Exactly. And with Annie in season one, you think she realizes this too. She's mad at her mom at the end, that she's like, wait, what? You gave me Compound B when I was a baby, and that's how I got powers?
And
I
that's why her
thought,
dad left.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot about that part too. But yes, you feel like they are God's chosen ones, or it's a miracle that they've now been born with powers. And there's an added element to that, because if you've been trained like I have, wearing an X-Men shirt, you think, X-Men born with powers. There was the natural step in evolution. Some people got it, some people didn't. And the show, I think, plays to comic fans like that, because yeah, you think that they're just naturally born with it, and then it's flipped on its head, where this company has been manufacturing anything. And I think that provides a lot of story beats as the show progresses as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So shall we go on to Glorious 5-Year Plan Part 2? So we're on number 12. So we only
Okay,
have
let's
12,
do it.
13, and 14, and then we have wrapped up Omnibus number 1. It's
Let's
like a
go.
lot happens, but it goes so fast in comics at the same time. All right.
That's
So
true.
Stillwell is working with Nina to get this soup killing drug going. Stillwell is still playing her, though. The boys catch the people who sent the pizza and they interrogate one. He tells them that the American is working with Nina and he wants the boys gone. So Stillwell wants the boys out of Russia. He doesn't want them there. He'd prefer them, 6 feet under. So
Mhm.
it has something to do with soups exploding in the sky. Voss, apparently, that's love sausage. He really loves communism. He keeps saying how much he loves communism.
Okay.
The boys do find Nina.
Yeah, sorry. He's kind of like Red Guardian, that
He's a
in a
hunt.
sense.
I actually have that in my notes a little further down. He is exactly like Red Guardian.
Yeah.
He's because like he even puts a suit on later and it's like too small and he comes out and when I was reading it, I was reading it in Red Guardian's voice. Like I
Oh my
was going to say
God.
Jim Hopper. I can't remember his
Yeah,
real
yeah,
name now.
David Harbour. Yeah,
Dave,
yeah,
there you
yeah.
go.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, 100%. And I got to assume that this is based off of Red Guardian and the way that Tech Knight was based off of Batman.
Yeah, good point.
Okay, so but yeah, so the boys find Nina. She leads them to like basically like a warehouse or like shipping containers full of a ton of soups, dressed in their soup costumes, and they're all bored and waiting. There's about 150 of them, and Butcher says some of them even look familiar.
Hmm.
All right, so we can
Okay.
go. Yeah, number
Did they
13. Oh, go
did
ahead.
they I'm like wondering, the whole story with Kimiko and her being like captured and all that stuff. I wonder if there's, they're trying to play off that storyline in the show or
No,
not.
these all
Yeah.
these soups look like not happy to be there, but like they're waiting to be like famous, and they want their big shot, and like they don't look like they're there
Oh.
against their will at all.
Oh, okay, okay. Got it. Huh. Interesting.
So here you can see what's going to show here. You can see them just kind of like chilling, playing cards, kind of waiting. Yeah, they're
Got
all
it. They're
fine.
they're like ready to like be inducted into the seven and like try out and all that.
Yeah, they want their claim to fame. They're, why are we still waiting here? We want to go do stuff. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Got it. Got it. Right on. All right. Perfect. All right. On to
All
part
right.
three, I think.
So part 3, number 13. So Billy figures out who Stillwell is, and he learned that the V has become more stable. So he knows that Stillwell's from Vought. He's the Vought guy. And the compound V that was exploding heads is now more stable, and they're able to basically control and even detonate with a remote these this compound V. So it's almost like Suicide Squad with the chips in their head where they can detonate it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But it's
Totally.
done something with their DNA in their brain or something that they're able, they did like Cisco kind of science in the comic to explain it, even though it's not real.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Which, yeah, I will say that's different than the show already because like the whole show, I feel like the boys plus the government are trying to find ways up on the soups. They're always trying to find ways to like control them. And this, like, they actually have a literal dynamite
kill
stick that can
switch.
go, yeah,
Yeah.
kill switch. So that, yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's a big change.
Yeah. So as Billy's continuing to tell the other boys and Voss about this, he suddenly passes out. Nina's boys tried to kill them. Voss is able to save the day, though, but Billy, MM, Frenchie, and the female all passed out. They're all eating the same thing, but fortunately, Voss and Huey took shots of Russian vodka, and that saved them, and they didn't pass out.
Okay, okay.
So that's when Voss puts on his super costume, and so you know how in the show he has his penis becomes really long and he chokes like more than once, poor guy.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that does not happen in the comic. So I will say that is one thing I think that goes to an extreme in the show that doesn't in the comic. In the
Okay.
comic, he's just really strong, but he is very endowed, and you can see that in his superhero costume. But
Okay.
it's not part of his superhero abilities.
Oh, it's not?
No, not in the comic. If
Oh.
anything, it can actually be a detriment because at one point they're running through a strip club and he becomes aroused and he says that his biggest what does he say? His like biggest struggle or biggest like basically kryptonite is a huge erection.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
So,
But he's not. But his name is Love Sausage still in the comics, right?
yes.
And it's not a power. Wow. Okay.
No. I think
That's
it was probably just like his friends, see him in the locker room one day. They're like, "Holy crap!"
yeah. Love
I mean, it's
Sausage.
like the dude
Good for
from
you,
what is
dude.
it, Night of the Seven Kingdoms? Good lord.
Yeah. Lord Arlen. Man. Yeah. Yeah. Him. It was. There was really four horses in that pack. Um.
That's
but
good.
yeah. Man. But okay, that's interesting because he's not necessarily like he's kind of a bad guy in the show, right? Like he's not totally a bad guy. He ends up in that facility and he chokes Mother's Milk where we first see Lamplighter, like the real
Mhm.
Lamplighter. And but in this one he's almost kind of like a good guy then,
Yeah,
right?
he's like their friend. It was funny because when I was reading it, I thought I had remembered him turning on them, and I was remembering the poison in the soup, and that wasn't actually him. That was the other people.
Oh,
Because
okay.
for a second, Huey thinks it was him. But I will say in the show, though, we then see him later at Herogasm, and he's just there for a good time. So it seemed like he was just like fighting to get out of the facility, maybe.
Right, right. Or yeah, exactly. They were like, if you capture them, we'll let you out or something. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. That's a good point.
All right, so let's wrap up our first omnibus in Russia. So number 14, Glorious 5-Year Plan conclusion. So Voss and Huey attack Nina's guys and then try to stop Nina, and they actually see her plane go boom as they go up there. Turns
Okay.
out Butcher had put a bomb in her vibrator, so when she turned it on, it exploded. So when they got into the air, she turned it on, and boom went the airplane. Vought
Okay.
wanted to kill her anyways, and they were already in the process of doing this, but Butcher wanted to give the pilots a chance. Unfortunately, they still passed. CIA
Okay.
then tells Butcher to back down, come home. We can't get involved. They can't know that America has anything to do with all this stuff going on in Russia. Do you know how that would look? And yeah, it would look bad. So he explodes the 150 soups to prevent a coup between Vought and Russia. We end with Stillwell on the phone with Homelander, telling him it will all be fine because Homelander's very upset that Butcher and the boys did not get killed. And
Mm.
Stillwell tells Homelander he can get over it, or it will all be fine, or he can even grow a pair. So Stillwell's talking down to Homelander. And then
Wow.
as we see Stillwell in his plane coming back into New York, they once again focus on the Twin Towers. And that is how the
Okay.
first omnibus wraps up.
Okay. Very, very different. Just so I can kind of summarize where we end in season one with the boys, episode 8, You Found Me. The boys attempt a major strike on Vought and everything goes sideways. Homelander reveals Becca is still alive and that she has had his child. Homelander murders Stillwell, as we've mentioned before, and leaves Butcher devastated. He tries to blow up a bomb to kill him and Homelander, but he wakes up outside, and the season ends with Butcher forced to confront his truth with this whole mission that was built on a lie because Becca is still alive.
And Becca is definitely not alive, and neither is Ryan in the comics.
Wow. Okay. So that's a big departure there in terms of like the motivation of Butcher.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, he still wants because his wife passed. But I think Ryan again adds an extra element and more depth to not only Butcher but Homelander as well. Because like one of my favorite scenes, as much as I love Soldier Boy, was when Butcher and Homelander had a moment where they were going to fight Soldier Boy together to protect Ryan. They were like, "Oh,"
Right.
and it was the first time you saw them on the same side of anything. So I thought that was cool, and
That was
it's
cool.
fun to see Homelander as almost a good parent at times. Is kind of weird.
Well, yeah, and I think that's what's amazing about this show and these characters is like again, it seems so crazy, maybe in a lot of ways to compare this to Game of Thrones, but there's always this shade of gray. I love this aspect. You know, Eddie, I think great writing to me is like you understand this person's evil and despicable, but you kind of understand where they're coming from. And very much with the boys, you do kind of understand with Homelander a little bit. Like he grew up in this lab and nobody loved him and he was in this containment cell. One of like the creepiest scenes I think I don't know. I'm not a horror movie fan, so I don't know if you like scary movies, but is when he goes back to the facility where he was like quote unquote
Oh gosh,
raised,
with Fudgy
and
the
he
whale.
yeah, and he's like just messing with everybody downstairs, and he puts the guy in the incinerator or like in the room, and yeah, you're like if he grew up like that, I would probably be a little messed up too,
Yeah,
and
and you
but
can't
he's
really
still
feel
terrible.
bad for those people either. It's like,
I
I
do,
mean,
but yeah.
as a human being, you look and you cringe and you're like, "Oh my god, this is terrible." But then you're like, "Oh my god, they did this to a child?"
To a child, yeah, yeah, exactly. And this show has done that amazing well. It's kind of a way that I think they've also allowed us to still kind of humanize Homelander because I think without Ryan, he is just a despicable, evil, terrible version of Superman.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think that's probably a good addition. Although there is a time where one thing I do love about comics though is sometimes it is that black and white. Sometimes there is just like that guy's a bad guy, he's evil, he's always
Right.
been evil, he'll continue to be evil, and this guy's the good guy. And there's something nice and comforting about that for me. So I don't know. I think both truly are satisfying in their own ways.
Yeah. No, yeah, I like my villains with a little bit of like, "Oh, I see why they did that." Like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
like that. But yeah, I definitely love what they've done with the show and the spins they've done from the comics. I know a lot of people, are like, "Oh, I'm not, but you're not going to please everybody." And some people are like, "I don't know, they do too much and they go too far and da da da." Nothing's for
Mhm.
everybody, but I've loved every season.
Yeah. Likewise, I've really liked it. I think Gen V might be one of my favorite shows, which is, of course, we wouldn't even get Gen V if The Boys wasn't successful. But yeah, this show is just, oh man, the contemporary commentary, this is just one of my favorites too.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people slept on Gen V, which I highly recommend not doing, especially right now, because they're really starting to weave those shows together. And
Hmm.
next week, when we do the second omnibus, one of the storylines is what they based Gen V on. So we'll get to meet Godolkin and the G Men.
The G-Men, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just like the terrible version, like the most horrible version of the X-Men ever.
Basically,
Okay,
yes.
okay. Yeah. Well, right on. Well, I love doing this with you. Thank you. I feel like I've learned so much already in the difference. Thank you for breaking that down. Hopefully everybody at home too. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this as well. Let us know what you think. Drop in the comments. Make sure to follow us on social media. With our handles are here. We're going to be at Nerd Initiative as well. Check out all the breakdowns as we're going through this and as we prepare for season 5, which I know we are very, very excited about it. But so many of us in Nerd Initiative, I think, are super excited about this show too. Yeah, please, yeah, and anything else I forgot, please.
No, that's about it. I just want to credit everything. All comic images are from Dynamite Entertainment. All real images are from The Boys TV or Gen V, courtesy of Prime Video. Copyright Amazon Studios. And of course, The Boys is based on the comic The Boys, written by Garth Ennis and Derek Robertson. And fun fact, issues 13 and 14 actually had some art done by Peter Schneidenberg as well, which if you're a fan of like Hornsby and Halo or Ghost Machine over at Image Comics, we have an
Yeah.
interview with him about his wholesome Hornsby and Halo comic. And I did not realize he also did The Boys, or I 100% would have had questions, but I absolutely love the range of art from those both fantastic comics, just incredibly, incredibly different.
That's so
So
awesome.
yeah. So that's what we got. And yeah, come back next week for Omnibus number 2.
All right, everybody. Yeah, we'll be doing Omnibus number 2. I'm so excited. I want to read this, but I won't because I like loved learning all of this from you. And we'll see you next week, everybody.
Cheers.
All right. Bye.